requires, I think, significant talent, sir, because I thought it was clear when it indicated that this is not a new imposition of tax by any stretch of the imagination, sir. I was equally clear to explain how the fee structure associated with the administration of these online platforms work. And I thank the Honourable Member for St. Michael West Central for reminding the Chamber, and as well as the Leader of the Opposition, that he too voted for the imposition of this very measure as I articulated as part of government's response to saving the economy back in 2018. What I found particularly interesting as well, at least one aspect of it, was, and I think just for the record, sir, there are two economists in this chamber. The Honourable Member for St. Michael South Central and myself, sir, call ourselves economists, and I think that it is really a sign of gross disrespect to both of us having started on a journey of trying to help rescue Barbados by reintroducing sound economic policy as well as sound management, sir, with respect to what was left before this country by the Democratic Labour Party. And so, whilst we know that our work continues, I just want to put that in the record, sir, for what it's worth. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition also made a comment with respect to the level of reserves and how the reserves are borrowed money, sir. And it's interesting because I thought it was also clear to indicate that when visitors come to this country and check into these various accommodations for which Barbadians are hosting, that 24 hours after a guest checks in, Airbnb pays into the account of each host in Barbados money. What I realized I didn't say is that that money, sir, is foreign exchange. And therefore, that foreign exchange, which as I clearly indicated, sir, as a community tourism, genuine community tourism program, it means that ordinary Barbadians, regular Barbadians, as I indicated, sir, not just are being included in the recovery, but they too are helping to earn the very foreign exchange, sir, that he is suggesting is all borrowed, which indeed it is not. And so I know that he is wanting to see himself in tomorrow's paper, sir, which is usually his modus operandi and his need to be able to see headlines. But regrettably, sir, regrettably, I want to say to Barbadians that do not allow ourselves to become distracted. I want us to lift our game with respect to what services we can offer, Deputy Speaker, in relation to not just the tourism product by way of accommodation, but by being able to recognize that if we are accepting visitors into the country, into our communities, into our homes, sir, that we are genuinely allowing community tourism, community development, community investment, sir, to be at the center, sir, as of this economic recovery. And therefore, within our communities, we're going to have a responsibility to make sure, for ourselves first, but certainly for those who will come and visit us, that we observe good order, and therefore we must be able to give comfort for those persons who want to come to Barbados, that they can walk any part of Barbados, sir, freely, as they do now, and that we commit as a country to ensure not just their safety, but the safety of our families as we introduce people to elements within our community, the ram shops, sir, the various hair salons and barbers, that people are equally living as Bajans within our community, sir. The same things that we do, they are also doing. And therefore, I believe that this is really an anchor upon which we can genuinely build a strong and robust economic recovery. And I believe that this is critical for allowing us to be able to do that. And so the fact that we are making it a little easier for people to participate in this space without having to worry about having to go and file a VAT return, sir, I think that that is something worthy of note, because the earning of this foreign exchange, the participation in the economic recovery, and being able to provide jobs, sir, because in a lot of instances, people are hiring people from within the very community, sir, to come and cut the little grass before the guests arrive, to come and clean up the place in between stays, sir. People supplying local condiments and cuisine and in the like within the area, sir. This is what is helping to spur growth. So whilst he is talking about the Central Bank report, suggesting that the growth is slowing or declining, or I think words to that effect, something to that effect that he used, the reality is we are seeing more and more growth. Yes, he made reference to inflationary growth. There's actual growth, sir, which ordinary people can see and feel, because when people come into the communities, it starts with the taxi men dropping off the people, sir, the visiting the local shops, sir, and it is that organic growth that we want to sustain right across the communities in Barbados. And the reality is, sir, is that as the pie gets larger, sir, as the pie gets larger, so to speak, it means that the same level or the same numbers actually equate to a little less, only numerically, sir, only numerically. But the reality is that the demand, sir, the demand for goods and services, but more importantly, and I hope that within the context of how people are pricing their accommodation, that they're recognizing that there's an opportunity not just to provide good quality service, but to ensure that you're not underpricing your product, or for that matter, overpricing, but you get the right pricing to ensure that you can maintain your property as you're seeing, but be able to make a few dollars in return. So I want to say to the Leader of the Opposition that whilst I know that the public policy of the Democratic Liberal Party is to tax everything and give nothing by way of provision of good public services, we have been using the resources that have come from not just the levies, but all the other reforms that we've put in place to help improve the delivery of public services to the country. And I know that the public can see the difference between the approach of the Barbados Liberal Party and how it hits their pocket, specifically in relation to being able to have the confidence to invest in these areas. And I hope that people continue to be able to fully participate in helping us to be able to have a very robust economy moving forward. So as I promised, sir, brevity is the order of the day, and therefore I commend this bill before the Honourable House. And obviously the next step is to have it in the Senate, and as I indicated, once concluded, then we will start the registration process with the various online entities and be in a position then, sir, as I say, to reduce the administrative burden with respect to persons who are currently operating in this space. And so with those very, very, very few words, sir, I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
The question is that this bill be read a second time. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that the House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill.
The question is that this House resolve itself into committee for further consideration of this bill. All those honourable members in favour, please say aye. Those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
This Honourable House is now in committee.
Close this. Mr. Chairman, permission to call in clauses.
So granted.
Clause 1 through 7.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clauses 1 through 7 stand part.
Question is that clauses 1 through 7 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Clauses 8 through 15.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that clauses 8 through 15 stand part.
Second.
The question is that clauses 8 through 15 stand part. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
First schedule.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the first schedule be the first schedule to the bill.
Second.
The question is that the first schedule be the first schedule to the bill. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Second schedule.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move that the second schedule be the second schedule to the bill.
The question is that the second schedule be the second schedule to the bill. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I beg to move the report to His Honour the Deputy Speaker the passing of one bill in committee.
The question is that I do now report to His Honour the Deputy Speaker the passing of one bill in committee. All honourable members in favour, say aye. Honourable members against, say no. Methinks the ayes have it.
Honorable members, the chairman has reported the passing of one bill in committee.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be read a third time.
The question is that this bill be read a second time, third times. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. All against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Sorry. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move that this bill be now passed and cited as the Tourism Levy Amendment Act 2025.
The question is that this bill be now passed and so cited as the Tourism Levy Bill 2025. Tourism Act. Tourism Levy Amendment Act 2025. All those in favor, all those members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it. The act is so cited.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, order number 8. Yes, please. In the name of the Honourable Minister of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, to move the passing of a resolution to approve in accordance with Section 5 of the Land Acquisition Act, Chapter 228, the sale to the Pilgrim Holiness Church, the Wesleyan Holiness Church, of a parcel of land, the property of the state, situate at Welch Village, Bath, in the parish of St. John, in this island, and more particularly described in the schedule.
Honorable member for St. George South.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I wish to beg your permission to do these two resolutions as a cognate debate. They're inextricably linked. The sale of the land to, yes, my mic is on. Sir, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for the sake of the member for Christchurch South, I beg that these two resolutions be done in a cognate debate. They're inextricably linked, Mr. Deputy Speaker. And so,
Sorry. All right. The question is that number 8 and 9 be treated as a cognate debate. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. All against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. This resolution, though straightforward, is a very important resolution. The resolution pertaining, Mr. Deputy Speaker, before the House seeks the permission for the sale of 2,467.7 square meters of state land situated at Welch Village in St. John to the Victory Wesleyan Holiness Church, and the lease of 319.9 square meters, including the road, 6.8 square meters in road, to the said church. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, let me begin with some historical facts with respect to this land. The land that we propose to sell to the Victory Wesleyan Holiness Church, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this land was formerly the land owned by the Bath Plantation in St. John. And before the 1970s, Mr. Deputy Speaker and members of the chamber, the Welch Primary School was situated on this piece of land. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this land, when the Welch Primary School was closed, this land then became the property of the diocesan trustees, or was occupied by the diocesan trustees, the Anglican Church. And in 1977, the state bought some 42 acres of land from a Mr. Baxter, 420 acres of land, sorry, from a Mr. Bruce Baxter. And this included the site on which the former school and the church previously operated. And from 1997 to 2013, that's the period that the diocesan trustees operated the St. Julian Anglican Church. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, the fact that the state acquired the land in 1977 meant that the diocesan trustees paid rent to the state for the period of time that they occupied and they operated a church there. And in 2015, fast forward into 2015, the diocesan trustees, they terminated the lease on the church, and the priest in charge of the St. Julian Anglican Church sent correspondence to the ministry on the last day of the year 2015, informing the ministry that the church was no longer interested in renting the property from the state. But, Mr. Speaker, this property has always been a staple in the community of Welch Village. In addition, the church currently sits on a piece of land. While we're doing it as a cognate debate, the church currently sits on a piece of land, 311.9 square meters of land. A very small piece of land. Those of you who know Welch Village, and I assume that the member for Christ Church South has spent some time in Welch Village, so he knows that piece of property, along with the parliamentary representative of St. John, who knows it exceptionally well. And but Mr. Deputy Speaker, the reality is the church is a very small church, and the congregation has outgrown the church. So we have a number of persons. It's a village that service that church, member for St. John, that church service Newcastle, Sergeant Street, Bath, Welch Village. So indeed, the role is increasing. Is increasing. Please, let me, please. Mr. Deputy Speaker, you know, it's a lot of humor in here today, but I wouldn't get into any comment about George Street, but this is a very serious resolution. And the church, no, it's not serious.
The church is growing.
The church is growing. Cool it, no man. Cool it, please. The honourable member is, I know the honourable member for Christ Church South will support this resolution as a churchman. But just the facts relating to it, the issue is the value of the Wesleyan church, the current Wesleyan church, stands at close to $147,200 as represented by Barbados Revenue Authority. And the current land that we are seeking to sell to the Wesleyan church, the value is as represented by BRAR, when we looked at a value at $5 per square feet, or per square foot. That equates to $175,000. So when we net off the two, the Wesleyan church is being asked to pay approximately $28,000 for the purchase of this land that was once the Welch Primary School, as well as the St. Julian Anglican Church. But let me fast forward here, because Mr. Deputy Speaker, you know the scripture, I think it's Psalms 127, that speaks to unless the Lord build the house, they labor in vain. They labor in vain that build it. And Mr. Deputy Speaker, this just speaks to involving every aspect of building, not just the physical building of a church, but the building of an institution, whether it is the Democratic Labour Party institution, whether it's the Barbados Labour Party institution. Psalm 127:1 is applicable for any institution that seeks to ignore the involvement of the church and the role that the faith-based organization plays in building institutions and building a country. And the Victory Wesleyan Holiness Church has provided tremendous service to the people of St. John. And in the words of the pastor, it has stood as a lighthouse of hope, morality, and compassion in the community. And beyond its primary mission, Mr. Deputy Speaker, of spiritual guidance, the church continues to provide meaningful contribution in areas such as youth mentorship, family support, education, and social outreach. This government, Mr. Deputy Speaker and members of this chamber, recognizes the important role the church plays in nation building. We recognize the important role that the third sector plays, which is the church. And the church, particularly in our context, we recognize when we had Hurricane Beryl, the church played a major role in the relief effort in Grenada. And I will come closer to home that the church currently, and I think there's still some members being housed at the Spiritual Baptist Church in Christchurch, in the constituency of Christchurch East. The honorable member for Christchurch East knows more about this than I do. I think he was integral in making sure that the facility that he supports so dearly and holds dear to his heart was instrumental in assisting us in our Hurricane Beryl relief effort. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, we know that churches are often the first to respond to hardships and the first to offer moral clarity. That's the moral compass, the churches. All of us, in tough times, when we have challenging times, we resort to the church, and is also the first to provide hope. And I vow to say that this extends beyond the support provided to local communities. And indeed, when I visited that village of Welch recently, I want to digress a bit because within the last 3 months, the member for St. John and I, we had the opportunity, member, of giving title to 28 residents who live in Welch Village for over 40 years. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, that brings the total, he didn't do it. That brings the total of title transferred to 112 within that village of Welch. This church that we're speaking of today, the presentation and the handing over of the title to the residents was held in this church. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, sorry, that's because I'm accustomed to referring to Madam Deputy Speaker. There's no disrespect to you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, my friend. I will never do that to you. And while we laugh, you know, it's a very serious joke. But this is a very simple resolution, and the church, the Wesleyan Church, is celebrated 100 years in 2024. And indeed, me being a member, and we have some other persons in this chamber who are closely linked with the Wesleyan Church, and I know their support, this resolution to indeed sell land at a reasonable rate to the Wesleyan Church, because we know the role the churches play. Not just the Wesleyan Church, the Anglican Church, faith-based organizations, generally the third sector. We cannot, and I keep saying, when I wake up every morning, I ask the Lord for guidance to deal with the challenges that I face on a daily basis. And indeed, my upbringing, my value system, along with most of us, whether we want to say or not, we're built on those Christian values, and indeed providing spaces and buildings for us to have solace and to reflect and to involve the Almighty and the Supreme Being in what we do on a daily basis. This speaks to who we are as a people. Not just coming in here, sitting down and arguing about governance and how to run a country, but we have to recognize we don't do it on our own. And this sale would allow the people of Wealth Village to be grounded, similar to how we in here are all grounded. Opposition leader as well, because I know he's grounded as well. There's no divide on this, because we are all grounded in those fundamental values and principles that were taught in our Sunday schools across this country. And the people of Wealth Village will indeed be fortunate to have an expanded place to worship and an expanded place where these similar values can benefit the young people at a time like now, when our society needs to go back to the basics of these Christian values. And indeed, I am not going into any statistics or who didn't go to Sunday school and who didn't go to church and who involved in crime. But I vote to say that from my barometer and my compass, I believe the church can play a major role and continues to play a major role in making sure that Barbados remains a just society and where people can indeed walk about freely and engage in business, engage in school, and engage in recreational activities. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the current building, the 311.9 square meters that the current church sits on, will be transferred to the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Community Empowerment. And the minister, the member for St. John, has articulated in his, the ministry has articulated in their response to the Ministry of Housing, Lands, and Maintenance for the use of this facility as a community center. And indeed, that will be done as soon as the new Victory Wesleyan Holiness Church has been built and they can relocate across the street into their spacious new facility. The Ministry of Housing, Lands, and Maintenance will indeed see it fit to carry on the programs that we all need within our communities. And we often say it takes a village to raise a child. What is a community without a church? Places where the young people indeed can be educated, not only in schools, but indeed utilization of community centers and all of these facilities produced by the non-governmental organizations where they can indeed learn a trade, because we know very well that the SJPA can only take so much. And these community centers, I will leave this to the member for St. John, but my short time in that ministry, our vision was to allow these community centers to be used as satellite stations to assist SJPA and the Barbados Community College and the TVET Council programs. And I am confident that the minister, the current minister, the member for St. John, has carried on the government strategy. Ministers come and ministers go, but what remains is this government strategy to indeed empower our young people, to allow them to become world-class citizens with Bajan roots. And as I end, Mr. Speaker, I want to end with a famous scripture verse, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that you use very often. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you a future and hope. These resolutions before the House, Mr. Deputy Speaker, signals such a future and such a hope, not only for the churchgoers, but also for the children, the families, and the entire Bath and surrounding communities, who undoubtedly will benefit from the expanded programs, the outreach initiatives, and most importantly, the spiritual grounding that the church will continue to provide. With those words, Mr. Deputy Speaker, this resolution has been certified by the Attorney General's office, and indeed in accordance with Section 51C of the Crown Land Vesting and Disposal Act 225. As Minister of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, I propose that the Victory Wesleyan Holiness Church be allowed to purchase the 2,467.7 square meters of state land situated at West Village, St. John, and to lease 319.9 square meters of state land to allow the Victory Wesleyan Holiness Church to continue to operate and undertake the services from that existing church building until such time as the construction of the new church has been completed. With these remarks, I beg that the resolution do now pass. Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Leader of the Opposition.
I'm obliged to you, sir. The main feature of the resolution is that it evidences a commercial relationship between the state and the church, the Wesleyan Holiness Church, and the Honourable Member for St. George South confesses that he passes through there from time to time. And he says other members in here have been raised in that place, but that is not the present issue. It must now trouble us that this humble congregation is drawn into a commercial relationship with the government. Churches tend to be treated specially by the state. For example, they don't pay taxes, things of that nature, concessions of that nature are normally made to churches. I know that, as we say this morning, the government's preoccupation in relation to concessions relates to people, very wealthy people who own villas. But here is the government once again putting the poor and the humble to financial disadvantage. And I say that not to be facetious, but the same honourable member who introduced this resolution came here a few months ago and gave lands to a very profitable commercial entity called, well, I wouldn't call the name, I don't like calling names in here, but very highly valued lands on Gemmett's Lane were given to a bank, an international bank, in the amount, I think, of 5 hectares, prime commercial land on Greater Bridgetown. It's not in the center of Bridgetown, it's not Broad Street or Swan Street. And these very, very expensive lands were given to a bank which this government described as a development bank akin to the Caribbean Development Bank. Now, we have challenged that successfully, and we have demonstrated that there's a fundamental difference between the bank in question and the Caribbean Development Bank. The Caribbean Development Bank is a bank of member countries who established that bank, and as the name implies, for the development of all of its members. And although loans are loans for profit, there's a spirit in which the loans are given, and the emphasis is not on profit, but the emphasis is on development. And since they join together for the mutual development of all of the member countries from Jamaica right down to Guyana. Now, it is a matter of record that some of the countries in the Caribbean refuse to do business with the bank. So that when we begin to speak of the fundamental differences between the bank in question, which was given free lands, that remains one of the points of departure from any likeness to the Caribbean Development Bank. That bank bears absolutely no likeness to the Caribbean Development Bank, but the government thought it convenient to make the comparison because we know that the lands at Wildy were given to the Caribbean Development Bank precisely for the reason and the cause that it is not pursuing profit as much as it pursues development. And therefore, as a member country, Barbados felt proud to have the headquarters of the bank here. The bank in question, which were given the highly valued lands belonging to Barbadians, that bank was rejected by Jamaica, it was rejected by Trinidad, both of whom are members of the Caribbean Development Bank. And when it sought the concessions, including diplomatic privileges in those countries, it was rejected. Now, this is a matter of record. I'm not here to disparage the bank. I am here to tell the truth about this government's pursuits in relation to that bank. But the point being made today is that just a few months... Oh, beg your pardon.
The honourable member is
Honourable member
misleading.
for St. James Central.
Yes, sir. I very reluctantly raise in this matter. The honourable member is misleading the House with his reference to the Africa Exim Bank being rejected. The truth of the matter is, sir, that at no point has Jamaica, or to the best of my knowledge, Trinidad and Tobago, rejected the bank. The bank had simply, or the countries in question had simply not signed on to membership thereof. So there was nothing to be rejected. And the honourable member, therefore, has to be misleading the House.
Thank you. Please
Well, we
continue.
can, yes, I am obliged to you, sir. The honourable member for St. James Central may wish to engage I can't even remember the word. Anyhow, he may wish to split hairs. Yes, I do get lost for, I don't know everything, you know, I don't. The countries of Jamaica and Trinidad would have had the opportunity to do business of whatever nature with that bank. If the honourable member for St. James Central does not like the word rejected, I'm going to ask him to accept the term they declined to do business with the bank of whatever nature.
And again, Mr. Speaker, sir, I must write, Mr. Deputy
Honourable
Speaker, sir,
member for
on a
St.
point
James
of order.
Central.
Jamaica did not decline to do business with the bank. In fact, as an adjunct to the heads of government meeting which just took place in Jamaica, Jamaica has actually now signed on to the Africa Exim Bank. At the time when Barbados would have done that, which Barbados did, sir, Jamaica had not yet signed on. It is a matter of internal administration of the country, not a matter of rejection or declining or anything like that. Sovereign governments must be given the time to do those things they want to do.
Acknowledge.
Good. We're managing to drag information out of the government, and we're obliged that even if the government is not willing to volunteer things, that we can sometimes drag this government into admitting what is the state of affairs that affects this country. And we're grateful to the honorable member for St. James Central that he has now been cajoled into telling the truth about what is going on in relation to this bank. You will notice, sir, that he declined to say anything about Trinidad. And we now invite him to say whether Trinidad was approached by the bank, now that he is in the mood for disclosure, whether Trinidad was invited by the bank to offer diplomatic privileges to the officers of that bank. And he will be quick now to rise to his feet and say whether those advances were made by this bank to the Trinidad government for diplomatic privileges. And he will answer the question, did not the Trinidad government reject, we're back to the word reject, did not the Trinidad government reject these advances by the bank for the diplomatic privileges that this Barbados government has given, because it is not akin to the Caribbean Development Bank. This bank, yes, we're going to Trinidad now. You did very well. The honorable member did very well on Jamaica. Oh, he's on his feet again. The honorable member did very, don't let them interrupt you, sir.
Nobody interrupted me, sir.
Don't let them disturb you either. The honorable member has been very candid in relation to Jamaica. I am now inviting the honorable member for St. James Central, the honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs for this country, to say whether the bank was rejected and whether the bank's...
Leader of the opposition.
Beg your pardon, sir?
Could you get back to the resolution?
Yes, we are the resolution. Yes, that is, yes.
You're talking about banks all the time back.
Yes.
Speak about.
Let us take them back to the resolution. Right. But the point I was making, don't let them interrupt you, sir. No. Don't let them run.
Nobody. No.
Yes.
You're talking about banking all the time, right? But we're speaking about the resolution.
Excellent interventions. Please I will share that with the honorable member for St. James Central, that today it is not banking per se, but it is the treatment.
We speak about the land.
Yes. And we are talking, yes, indeed. And we are talking about this government's treatment of citizens, including corporate citizens. Let us get there. Yeah. And we were making the point originally, before the honorable member for St. James Central took us on an excursion as to what the Jamaica government has done or has not done. We are not interested so much in that as we are interested in the fact that this Barbados government gave away the lands situate at Gemmett's Lane to a bank, which is not a development bank, to a corporate for-profit entity, gave away the lands free, and that this same government has journeyed to St. John and is entering into a relationship with a humble Wesleyan church and asking the Wesleyan church to pay this government money for lands. That's the point we're making. That is the point we're making, sir.
Madam Member,
Mr. Deputy Speaker,
St. George South.
On a point of order, I stated that from 1977, the government of Barbados acquired Bath Plantation, and the church rented from the government. So I'm not sure what point the honorable member for Christchurch South is trying to make. From 77, we have always collected money from the church on this piece of property. That ends my contribution and intervention, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Acknowledged, sir.
Yes, thank you, sir. So that the last intervention is an admission that this government, whether it did it in 1977, is neither here nor there. What colors and influences the transaction now is that everybody in this country knows that this is a government that has clearly demonstrated that when it comes to the wealthy, that's the point I'm making, and I made the same point earlier this morning in relation to villas and Airbnb, that you give concessions to villas, but you're taxing the Airbnbs. And you come in this parliament today to further impose taxation in relation to those entities, whether it's from the host or the guest, it doesn't matter. It's a
Just
tax.
get back on track.
Beg your
sir.
pardon, sir?
Please get back on track.
Yes,
please.
let us debate discourse by way of comparative analysis. Don't let them fool you, sir.
Nobody's trying to fool me, sir.
No, I'm not going to sit here and let them do that to you. Simply because this is your first time there, I'm going to protect you, sir.
It's not my first time.
Beg your pardon, sir?
It's not my first time being here before.
Or it's the first time I'm having the pleasure and the honor
Yes, please.
to
Thanks for
address the
cross.
House
Yes, please.
under your presidency.
Please continue, sir. Please continue. But
Yes,
please
Your
stay
Honor.
on track. Stay on track.
Yeah, keep them on track, sir.
I want you to stay on track. Just,
Oh, I'm on track.
just
But I
focus.
want you to keep them on track, too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. So that the point being made, don't let them distract us. The point being made, and I'm going to say it so that the public hears me, we were making the point that this government is not well disposed towards the humble. Don't mind all the Bible verses. The Bible verses they avoided today, the Bible verse that they avoided today is that the meek shall inherit the earth. Certainly under this government, that it is never intended that that should happen. The meek in this country are merely inheriting a large tax burden. While this government, and they're embarrassed to hear it, and that's why we're getting the interruptions, this government took up some of the most valuable land in Barbados and gave it to a bank, a rich bank. And now they're embarrassed. And now they're embarrassing the honourable member for St. John, who was not even allowed to protest that this government is entering into a commercial relationship with a humble Wesleyan Holiness Church in St. John and demanding monies from that church. Why they didn't demand some monies from the African Bank? And it matters not that it is African, it could be Chinese or Czechoslovakian, it does not matter. What matters to the people of this country is that this government has taken up a highly valued asset of land and given it to a bank and is asking a small congregation in St. John to contribute to the revenue in this country. That is not a matter for celebration. Look, and this is not to constitute any attack on the honourable member for St. George South. I did ask him to turn on his microphone because he spoke in very low tones today. When I thought that it was the microphone, we then discovered that it was embarrassment. I know as a man who traverses the doors of the Wesleyan Holiness Church on Sundays, some Sundays, not every Sunday. I know that he doesn't go in there every Sunday. But I know he spoke in low tones because he's embarrassed. And his colleague, the honourable member from St. John, may suffer similar embarrassment because between the two of them, they could not persuade the government to practice financial forgiveness in relation to a humble congregation. So that if they wish to convey, or if they've been sent to convey that the government has done some favor for the Wesleyan Church in St. John, they have not. Because those Wesleyans in St. John, like me, will be asking this government the question, why are you asking us to drop our pennies into the collection plate when you did not ask the bank to drop a purchase price into the acquisition of those lands at Gemmett's Lane? This is 166 square miles. And everything is near to everything else. And those humble congregants of St. John, they may not ask it overtly, but they will wonder. They will wonder at the principle by which this government carries on its business. Why do I have to increase my contributions to the collection plate? Simply because the government feels that it cannot be generous towards a small church in St. John. And that is the simple question that will be asked. We are not diverging into banking. What we are doing, we are exposing the unequal treatment that this government reserves for corporate citizens of different means. And by now, the people in Barbados well understand how this government is disposed in relation to the wealthy. I said it this morning. Here's the evidence again. When it comes to the wealthy, the government offers protection to give lands at Gemmots Lane in the sum of 5 hectares free, not a cent. That is protection. That is financial protection. That is security given to a wealthy corporate entity. And then we read, for I know the plans. This is what I heard from the Honourable Member for St. George South. Jeremiah 29:11, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Now declares the government. This government has adopted Jeremiah 29:11 in its treatment of the bank. And this government has clearly demonstrated its plans for the bank. Plans to prosper the bank and not to harm the bank. Oh, how the Wesleyan Holiness Church in St. John wishes that the government would have adopted and invoked Jeremiah 29:1 in relation to them, but no. The bank goes away. Free lands. Boasted a few hours ago that they were going to start construction. What are they starting construction with? Money. If they're starting construction, they can't be broke. They cannot be. But a poor little church in St. John, and this is not to be patronizing, is being asked to spend money, paltry sums, paltry for the government. But the Honourable Member for St. George South and I know the financial state of our boyhood church, that it is not rich. And every additional imposition against the church, and this church, and we know how the government feels about the church. We heard it a few weeks ago. We know how the government feels about the church. No Barbadian now is in any doubt as to how this government feels about the church. But the point is this. Whatever are the sums being demanded, and I'm going to use strong language, whatever are the sums being demanded by treaty, by contract, by resolution in this parliament of the Wesleyan Holiness Church, it is a lot of money for the church. But a big bank gets 5 hectares of land free. And a few hours later is boasting that we are going to start construction soon. You understand what's happening in this country, sir? Barbadians do. You nod your head. You do.
No, my head at you, sir, but I
Oh, I
reading
see.
something, sorry.
Oh, my interpretation of the nodding head was, I see. I watch you very closely, sir, when I'm addressing you. And they can interrupt me as much as they want. They must feel embarrassed for having been exposed. For having been exposed. The people of Barbados now know how this government relates to the wealthy and how it relates to the poor. I will make the point again that earlier today, the government came to tax the humble Airbnb people. This afternoon, they're coming to impose a financial burden on a humble church in St. John. And for the life of me, I don't know what the Honourable Member for St. John can, will, or intends to say when he speaks, because he has to speak. And he has to tell this Parliament and the people of this country, he has to tell the people of this Parliament and the people of this country what is his opinion as to this transaction in the context of a voluntary conveyance having been given this year to a bank, a for-profit bank. He has to tell, the honourable member would have to tell this Parliament whether that behavior of the governments is not inconsistent. Again, the principle, your treatment of the wealthy is protective, and it is far different from your treatment of those who are not wealthy. And you will be asked to explain it. Now, I wouldn't put the burden on the honourable member for St. George South to explain it. He brings the resolution here because that is his portfolio. And as I've said on previous occasions, we all understand the situation where the voice is that of Jacob's and the hand is that of Esau's. And somehow, I don't think the voice and the hand reside within the same body. So I normally excuse the honourable member for St. George South. He's placed in a position and he has to do what he has to do. But the government will have to explain to the people why there is mounting evidence as to how this government treats those who are not wealthy. And today, how this government, in one day, Your Honor, in one day, by two resolutions brought to this House, by two instruments brought to this House, I beg your pardon. One was an amendment to a piece of legislation. The other one is a resolution for the purchase of land. And in both acts by this government in one simple day, the government has displayed a consistency in its unequal treatment of the classes. And that is not to be emotive. The evidence is there. We don't come here to be emotive or to invoke emotive language. We come here to tell the truth, and the evidence is there. So that the point that I was making before the interruption was that by our experience, sir, we know how difficult it is for a church to raise funds. We know that. We do know that. And one would have hoped that this government, which attacked the churches a few weeks ago, one would have hoped that there would have been some repentance. And that the government would have said, look, perhaps we can change our attitude towards the church. And on a matter that is a trifle for the government, but a mountain for the church, give the people the land, just as you gave the bank the land. And they gave the bank a vast stretch of land, free. Snuck in here a night after the budget debate and tried to do it when I was absent. And I was in the yard listening to them, and I came up and challenged it. Well, this time they're doing it in broad daylight. In broad daylight, they are imposing potentially hardship on the church, when the church should be encouraged to pursue its work within the community according to the admirable language of the honourable member for St. George South. He used the terms morality, hope, and compassion. Where's the government's morality in relation to the two comparative transactions? Where's the morality? Where's the morality involved in giving away 5 hectares of land to a profitable bank while you impose on a small church in rural Barbados to pay the government? You can imagine that? That you're asking the pastor to visit wherever he's supposed to go. I'm embarrassed to read it, really. It is here in the second schedule. I don't know if you have it, sir. But they have set out, this government has set out a schedule articulating how this little church in the country is supposed to visit the treasury and to pay these amounts. over the foreseeable future. Is that fair? Is that right? Is that moral? Does it express hope for this church's future? Is it compassionate? Those are the words of the Honourable Member for St. George South that I reintroduced to him. And nothing about this transaction speaks about a government that is compassionate. Nothing about this transaction speaks to a government, to use their word, that cares. It is just a continuation of this government's treatment of the church by word when the church was attacked a few weeks ago as having failed to protect the people of this country. And now by deed, a resolution and a deed of conveyance that will be drawn, or a deed of, well, conveyance, whether by transfer or by lease, a deed that will be drawn to force a little green, a little aquamarine and white church. Those are the Wesleyan colors. To come to them, to come to the government and pay the government money. And a Frexham bank was never requested to pay a cent that we know of anyhow. That we know of. I know how to silence them, sir. That we know of. I think I heard the figure $28,000. I was trying to write. But for how long? For how long will this transaction last? Will people grow old and die as members of that church with this debt unsatisfied? We don't use pennies anymore, but I'm going to use the term, will every penny drop into the collection plate be counted in part as a debt to the government? A government that claims to be compassionate? Is that what this church must be asked to do? I'm not being patronizing at all. I am exposing this government's relationship with the church in this country and the churches in this country. And I'm going to say it again, above the whispers. Why could not the church in St. John have been given these lands of such little financial value? Is it too good for them? Is it too good for them, government? That's the question. Where is the morality in this transaction? Why must the church be tied to the government commercially and financially? Why? What is the benefit to government? Where's the virtue in this transaction? Why? Is there an explanation? Or does this government believe that certain elements in this country, and I say elements, are entitled to protective treatment, to generosity, and to use a Bajan term, to freeness, and that the church must remain bound to this government in a commercial transaction which does injury to the concept of tithing. So that when a little old gentleman does his tithing now on Sundays, he must consider that part of his tithe is going to the government by demand, by way of deed, by way of legal instrument. Or if he tithes, he may have to put in a little extra for the government. What really is going on here? What is so compelling about this transaction that you force a church to pay a government money? a government which is so wasteful otherwise with money. This government wastes a lot of money. Why must these good and humble folk of St. John be asked to enter into this commercial and financial relationship with the government, and let not one of them get up and say that it is a small amount? It is not the amount that matters. What matters is that the arrangement exists at all. Why could not have some conveyance been drawn and handed to the church? Why not? Why not? But somewhere subconsciously within the mind of this government is this inclination to treat certain people one way and treat another set another way, so that when I come in here and speak of the Medes and the Persians, I know what I'm speaking about. Your Honor, the evidence is there, and they can get angry if they want, but the evidence is there. Get angry with the evidence. Get angry with yourselves. But the evidence is there, and I'm going to highlight it for the sake of the people in this country. And I ask the people of this country to walk away from what this government has done this afternoon and to consider two parties of relevance. And I'm going to call the name now of Frexham Bank and the Wesleyan Holiness Church, formerly the Pilgrim Holiness Church, and to consider this government's treatment of those two entities, and to tell the people of Barbados whether the government's treatment of those two entities is equal under the rule of law. One of the main precepts within the rule of law is that all persons are equal before the law, and therefore are entitled to equal treatment before the law. Where is the equal treatment today? Or will we agree to be embarrassed? Will we agree to be in a parliament that will be embarrassed? And permit repetition now, sir. What is so compelling about this transaction that requires it to be characterized by the exchange of monies? And whatever is the amount, sir, it is too much. It is too much. It is too much of a burden to put on this church, whether by way of conveyance or lease. I say it ought to have been a deed of gift. Or, as we lawyers sometimes opt to do, a voluntary conveyance. Voluntary conveyance. But the Frexham Bank got a deed of gift. The Frexham Bank got a deed of gift. Where is this government today in relation to a small parcel of land in rural Barbados for a church that has done no sin to the people of this country? All they have done, Honourable Member for St. Thomas, you're a Christian. All they have done through you, sir, is good for the people of this country, for the people of that rural part of this country. Today, this parliament comes here and drags them into a commercial, financial relationship. And how long shall it last? Some of those who tithe in that church next Sunday may die, and the commercial nature of this transaction will survive them. And there are children unborn who will become members of that church, and they will have to contribute to the collection plate. And the collection plates normally are destined to help not a rich government, but to help the poor. The voices that you hear, sir,
Yes.
we have touched their conscience. And those are the voices of repentance. Those are the voices of repentance. I've touched them, sir. And it is not me, it is the truth that is touching them. Because they have to walk through that door this afternoon and tell the people of Barbados why they gave 5 hectares of land to a Frexton bank and asking a poor little church in St. John to visit the treasury every month to pay them pennies. I will hear you, sir.
Continue, sir.
Thank you very much. I thought you were about to quiet them down. But the truth has done that. And the Honourable Member for St. George South invites me to visit some church with him on Sunday. I know it can't be. After he has done what he's done today, it clearly will not be any Wesleyan church. And I suspect that he will not be visiting Ellerton for a while. Not after he has done what he's done today, but as I said before, the voice of Jacob and the hand of Esau operate within different bodies. And so, Your Honor, I must oppose this. And I don't... No, I oppose any relationship between a church and a government in which the church is being asked to pay money to a government of whatever amount. While the African Bank has not been asked to pay a cent. I know they're troubled. Their spirits are troubled. I know it. I can feel it. You hear the Honourable Member for St. Thomas, she wants me to stop talking because I am piercing away at her conscience. She is one of the few Christians in here, and she is mightily troubled at this point in time. She is mightily troubled, and her conscience is speaking through me. Because she keeps interrupting me, she's asking me to stop this pain that you are imposing on me, Honourable Member for Christchurch South. What I'm saying pains her. Yes, repetition, I want to pain you. I am doing this so that you will be in pain because I know, Honourable Member for St. Thomas, through you, sir, that you cannot be in agreement with this. I know you are a Christian, and I know that you believe that the church should not have been subjected to this. What is this government's explanation today for subjecting the church to this? Can you hear her, sir?
Yeah.
Let her speak.
But the document here says that there was an agreement between the church and the government, sir.
Yes, and government is a party.
So if the church agreed, if the church had a choice.
Well, let us discuss some law then. In every relationship, contractual relationship, you're speaking about agreement. One party has greater power than the other. And it was within the power of the government, it was within the superior power of the government to have an agreement in which the church would not pay. Like they had an agreement with the Frexton Bank that the bank would not pay. So as I said before, it matters not to me what is the amount, it is the principle that offends. It is the principle that offends the Honourable Member for St. Thomas. It is the principle that offends the Honourable Member for St. Thomas. Look at her, sir.
You get back on track, please.
Don't let them do that to you, sir.
Not me.
Don't let them do that to you.
Not me.
Let not your hearts be troubled, nor be ye afraid. Yours is troubled. Because, as I was saying, sir, they have to leave here today. You think that these honourable members drive through Gemmett's Lane? Not one of them, they're too ashamed. They cannot drive through Gemmett's Lane and look at that property which was formerly occupied by the Ministry of Health, by the old General Hospital, where more than likely the Honourable Member for St. Thomas's navel string is buried. She was probably born in there. Where the Ministry of Education used to be, honorable and noble institutions were housed on that sacred land. This government took it up and gave it away to the wealthy. To the wealthy. And that is the point being made in here. And the more they interrupt me, the more I am going to remind them of the immorality of the present transaction and the one before, and to compare them and demonstrate to the people of Barbados that this government continues to treat rich people with favor and to treat poor people with disfavor. Let their consciences bother them. Let them continue to avoid any drive through Gemmett's Lane. They are too ashamed to do it. And when they consider the full extent, the possible full extent of the transaction with a Frexham bank, I have the freedom to say this, and if they push me, I'm going to say more than they had bargained for me to say. They are going to push me. They are going to push me, sir, to say more.
Stay focused, sir. Let's continue.
Calm them down. No, in fact, don't calm them. Don't calm them. Don't calm them. When he's finished, I will talk.
Quiet, please. Continue, sir.
Thank
Stay
you very
focused.
much, sir. Quiet them. But you know you can't quiet their conscience. Inside their
But they
boiling.
ain't trying to quiet yours either, so just continue and stay
Inside they're
focused.
boiling. They are bubbling inside. And this government will never get over. We're talking about sin, political sin.
We speak about the resolution.
Yes, the political sin contained in this resolution.
Right.
And by way of comparison, this government will never live down the political sin of what they did on Gemmett's Lane, and today they will not live down the political sin of what they have come here to do this afternoon. Let their consciences rise up. I don't mind the noise. It shows that we are touching them, sir. You and I are touching them.
When you say you and I, sir, explain, please.
Well, you are trying to calm them. You're trying to calm them.
Just focus, sir, on the resolution.
You are presiding over this exercise.
But you're saying you and I in terms of like trying to intricate me.
I'm not trying to implicate you, sir. You're the best behaved here today.
Well,
So if I behave well and you behave well, we must be joined.
I want you to follow suit then. Beyond,
Yes.
your
Let
best
you and I
behavior.
be the only persons in here behaving well today, sir.
Yeah.
And every time I'm about to wrap up, jumps the honourable member for St. Thomas again. And the more
Just
she
stay
jumps
focused.
up,
Just
I'll
focus
stay
on it, sir.
focused. Let us ignore her then, sir. But it is difficult to ignore a conscience that is troubled. And you know, I used to enjoy it when the honourable member for St. Thomas sat there. Of course, I enjoy it far more now that you are there, sir. But I used to enjoy her presidency of this chamber. So in wrapping up, permit me, sir, to go to the addendum so that the people know what is going on here. I've changed my mind because I don't think it is incumbent upon me to do the government's work. But maybe the people would get very angry when they hear what this document purports to do to these humble folk. The people may become angry. And there is good reason why the honourable member for St. George South did not read the details within the second schedule and the addendum. There may be good reason why the honourable member did not do that, because he too does not wish to hurt them with these truths as to this commercial relationship. What he did, in fairness, was that he gave the value of the lands occupied by the church, and I expect he will get up and do calculations as to financial benefit. But we are going to make a different point. The transaction ought not to have been characterized by finance in the first place. So that if the honorable member and his colleagues intend to rise and say, but it is not a lot of money imposed on the church, good and reasonable people would ask him and his colleagues, but why need there have been money at all for this little tract of land in rural Barbados? Money imposed against people who did nobody any wrong, including this government. Including this government. This church that has been willing to accommodate the honorable member for St. George South in his boyhood days, and me in my boyhood days, but this is not about me nor him. This is about a principle, a larger principle, that no matter how minuscule is the financial arrangement, it ought not to have existed in the first place. What next, government? What next? Is this government going to start taxing the churches? Something that is not heard of in the Western Hemisphere? Is this government going to try to reverse this establishmentation that took place in 1969? Is this government going to become so authoritarian that its efforts to dominate every institution of this country will now more blatantly extend to the church, because this government is on an authoritarian political trajectory in which every institution in this country, including the church and the media, must now be subject to governmental dictate. That this government believes that it has the moral and political authority to determine how every institution will function, including the institution of the arts. Men and women are now afraid to write and to sing what their consciences dictate to them they shall sing. When Sunday comes, how will the people in that little church sing the Lord's song? In a financial land, a land in which government is now saying to them, when you're tithing, I want some. I want some. Why didn't ask a Frexham Bank for some? Why did they not ask a Frexham Bank for some? They're rising up again. Maybe they have an answer. And why do they want money from the little church in St. John? And they honestly felt that I would stand up in here today and be so naive as to support this resolution. I come here every week, every week, every week. Have not missed a session as leader of the opposition. And all of my speeches are on the record. Every one of them, including today's. And this is a speech against governmental wickedness. So let this go on the record as well, that I am characterizing this resolution as governmental wickedness. When one considers, and I'm going to repeat this and I'm going to dig it into their consciences, I am going to drive, let me not use violent language, but I am going to pour the truth into their consciences and let them discover that this act today is politically sinful. This act. No conscientious, Christian-minded parliamentarian will genuinely support this. And I did say conscientious and Christian-minded, with the hope that all 30 in here fit those categories. since I am not qualified to judge anyone in terms of their Christian convictions. But I express the hope that there are those in this parliament and in this government that will quietly reject this transaction as immoral and unnecessary, except that it may be consistent with government's desire to impose authoritarian rule on this country, and that even a humble congregation in St. John must feel obligated to the government by way of the payment of small sums periodically, so that it is not about the amounts, it is about the principle. It is about a relationship that you're establishing between the church and the state. That is the sin. I say, give freedom to the church. Give the lands to the church. But you gave freedom to a Frexham bank. You gave freedom to a Frexham bank. And the church is not building any 5-story temple. Maybe a Frexham bank is building a 5-story temple. Just maybe. And maybe with millions of dollars required to build that corporate temple, maybe that reflects that the original transaction to gift the land to them was wrong. It was wrong. And you know, Your Honor, the people in Barbados want it reversed. There are people who have sought legal opinions from us as to whether it can be reversed. It is as serious as that. I'm sure the government, I'm sure the members on that side have gone into their constituencies and heard those questions. And maybe that is why a lot of them are afraid to go into the constituencies. They can't deal with the questions, you know, sir. They can't deal with, the questions are hard. And you know what they're doing? They're hiding behind an army of public servants at something called Ideas Forum. Please don't go to those, sir. Please don't go to those, sir. And the other one, I can't remember the name, but you brought an army of civil servants all 10 o'clock in the night, and 5 sycophants from the branch, and pretend that you're having some town hall meeting to discuss issues, local issues, when you should have had local government in this country, but I don't want you to accuse me of digressing. Let us get back to the main point.
Please do, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you as well.
Let us get back to the main point. That no conscientious, Christian-minded parliamentarian or citizen of Barbados will defend this transaction in which a poor and lowly church from the country has been dragged into a commercial and financial relationship with the government, while a Frexham bank has been given the freedom to build a 5-story building on free lands. Both lands are sacred. Both the lands in St. John, which sit under this church, and the lands at Gemmonts Lane are sacred. The sacredness of the Gemmonts Lane lands has been defiled by this government's decision to part with the patrimony of this country to a corporate citizen that can afford it, that ought to have paid millions of dollars into the treasury of Barbados, except that a small church in St. John is being asked to pay pennies into the treasury. Where is this government's morality? Where is this government's moral principle? Where is the compassion of which the Honourable Member for St. George South spoke today? He really expected that I was going to stand here and support this. I will not, I cannot, I never will. These people have done this government nothing to deserve this kind of treatment, whether it is pennies or $100 bills. They have done nothing to deserve this disadvantageous and unequal and discriminatory treatment. And it is all those things because this government has treated a wealthy entity a lot better. And the people of Barbados know it, and the people of Barbados are angry about it. They are angry about it. Ask any of the 28, I beg your pardon, sir. Ask any of the 28 of them if they have not heard inquiries from the public as to the public's feeling on that transaction at Gemmett's Lane. Y'all think the people forgot? They haven't forgotten, and the judgment promises to be harsh. It promises to be harsh. When the people come and ask for a legal opinion as to reversal, that is evidence of anger. Yes, I say so in St. James North, and it is no less true today. I don't buy a vote. In the BUI election,
All right, sir.
Didn't buy one.
Let's get back on track and try to
Back
wrap
on
up.
track.
Try to
Let the
wrap up.
honourable member for St. James Central, let him act up. Let him act up, you
Focus
heard?
on the chair, sir. Get back on track and
Back
try
on
to
track,
wrap
sir.
up. Try to wrap up.
Yes, back on track. The consciences got them today. And so, Your Honour, I was at the point where I was about to read the schedules and the addendum, and I did say that, and I'm on to the other schedule and the other addendum, and I did empathize with the honourable member for St. George in his...
St. George South.
Beg your pardon, sir?
Member
St.
for
George
St.
South, yes. Thank you for listening, sir. I did empathize with him in his decision not to go into the details, because I suspect the details also embarrass him. This is a gentleman who has had, if I am to be personal, and I'm going to be personal in a very complimentary way, and he did hint at it, this is a young man who has been the beneficiary of that typical Barbadian boy upbringing. And having been the beneficiary of such a son of good parents, I've met them, a son of good parents will not and cannot come in here today and give the details of this transaction. He cannot do it. It is not within him. He cannot get it done. And if he gets it done,
Honourable
Mr.
member
Deputy
for
Speaker, the honourable
St.
member
George
is
South.
so misleading the chamber. During my presentation, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I outlined the value of the land as per the Barbados Revenue Authority. Both lands, the current Wesleyan Church, valued at $147,200, and the price at which we will sell the land, I think it's $175,200. And I'm not looking at it because I have it in memory. And we said we would net off the two values so that the Wesleyan Church will pay to the state, to the government, $28,000. I give the details. So I'm not sure where the honourable member, the opposition leader, is going with this. Please don't mislead the chamber or those who are listening. Thank you.
Point acknowledged.
when I described the honourable members having had that typical good Barbadian boyhood upbringing of good parents, I had no intention of misleading the chamber, and I'm going to insist that he had a good, decent boyhood upbringing of two decent parents, both of whom I met. And I don't want him to say to you that I'm misleading the chamber in giving that information. If he feels that it is too personal, I apologize to him. But I know that he had that good upbringing. And I know that he has been in recent times a good Wesleyan, and I know that it troubles his conscience. And I also know that there are parts of this second schedule, the parts of the schedule and addendum which he did not read. It's 2 pages. I agree with him that he gave the value of the land. I wrote it down, 147,000. The value of the church, he said 147,000. 200. Beg your pardon, sir?
200. 147,200. To be exact.
You are good, sir. You are good. 147,200, and the value of the land.
Please stay focused. Try to wrap up, sir.
Yes, 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 yes. I- Do I now have your permission to proceed, sir?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Please continue.
You and
Just
I-
focus on me, don't focus
Yes,
on them.
I will focus on him. You and I don't respond well to bullies. And what the honorable member got up to say is that I am charging them $28,000. Now, what we've been saying the whole afternoon, what you want $28,000? Look, he has now invited the people of Barbados into the details of the transaction. He did not ask, not he, the government. The government did not ask a Frexton Bank for $28,000. Where they spending it? Out there with the big rocks? Here shortly. We're going to get here shortly for the people. Now, $28,000 as an obligation upon this humble congregation in St. John. What is its equivalent if charged to a multi-million-dollar bank? The point I am making, Your Honor, is that $28,000 is a lot of money for these people in this rural community. And they will now hear, I wonder if they told them though. I wonder if the government told them. They did. And they weren't ashamed? Y'all weren't ashamed to tell them that? That you want $28,000 from them and you did not ask a Frexton Bank for a cent? I want to sit, sir, but every time I attempt to sit, there's something else about the transaction that makes the people of Barbados angry. That you did not ask a Frexton Bank for a cent, but you are demanding $28,000. And the honorable member for St. James Central now has gone silent because he's gone in a church a few times in his life. And his conscience is now troubled. Why are you asking these people for $28,000? Do you know what the collection plate in a typical Wesleyan church looks like on Sundays? This is not to embarrass them, but there's a board for those of us who go into the churches that reflects the collection. And the sums are modest. Yes, there's still some churches that do it. The honorable member for St. Thomas knows this. Yes, I do.
All right, sir, please focus on your chair and just try to wrap up your presentation.
I will accept your direction to focus on the chair. But you would have noticed, sir, that I have been pausing only to hear their consciences. And they know that what they're doing is wrong. And the honorable member for St. George South knows that it is morally wrong to ask this church whether he told them prior to today or not, whether they're now hearing it for the first time or not. And he departs to shed some tears elsewhere. No, you're going to shed tears. $28,000. You know what's the collection up there, sir? You want me to tell you, sir? You want me to tell you what is the collection on any given Sunday in any of these churches? Nazarene, Church of Christ, Wesleyan, whichever. You know how long it takes, sir, to accumulate $28,000 in a collection plate? Do you know, sir? Well, the honorable member for St. Thomas knows, even if the honorable member for St. James Central does not know. The honorable member for St. Thomas will inform him that it will take a long, long time to collect $28,000, and a Frexton Bank could have collected $28,000 just by signing a check, and they were not asked to sign that check. Where is this government's moral principle in relation to the citizens of this country, in relation to the rich citizens of this country when they are preferential? And where is this government's treatment in relation to the poor of this country when they are disadvantaged? And when this government intends to further disadvantage with these unfair, immoral, and sinful impositions against a little church in the country that has done nothing but good by the citizens of St. John. Where's this government today? Is this government willing to repent over what it does today? This is no joke. This is about a principle, honorable member, through you, sir, for St. James South, who has now signaled that she too will come to life. As a Christian so professed, where stands the honorable member for St. James South today? Let the repentances come forward. Let the confessions come forward. Say how you feel. Say how you feel. Say how you feel. Say how you feel.
Focus on the chair, sir, and on the resolution, and try to
Yes,
wrap up.
$28,000. That is the point. That is what troubles them in their bosoms. That $28,000 is being demanded of a small congregation in this country, a congregation that has done the people of the Barbados Labour Party nothing. Nothing. You hearing them, sir?
Focus on the chair.
Yeah, yes. Their hearts are now troubled. The next thing they can do is come there and kneel down. The next thing they can come and do is kneel down there and repent and ask the Lord for forgiveness. $28,000. $28,000. Let everybody in Barbados hear that this government has gone to a little church in Barbados and asked them to give the government $28,000 and did not ask a Frexham Bank for 28 cents. I didn't plan to be this long, but all the interruptions have spurred me on to disclose the wickedness, the governmental wickedness in relation to small people in this country. You did it this morning, you come back this afternoon, and you're doing the same thing. $28,000. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. Ask the people of that small church in St. John how they will raise this $28,000 simply because this government decides that some people must be treated like dirt and others must be treated like I don't know what. But the point is that at every turn this government makes, it discloses the inequality of treatment reserved for different people in this country. Who will defend this today? Which brave warrior on that side, on that governmental side, will defend this today? Which government member, Your Honor, will get up in here today and say that it is fair, just, and reasonable to ask a small congregation in the country to give them $28,000 simply because they name government? Simply because they have power, simply because they can't even pass a, I almost used the wrong word. They can't use a, they can't pass a, y'all can't even get a new constitution written 4 years later. You threatening to call an election, and 4 years later you can't even get a constitution written?
Sir,
yes,
please
Your Honor. Tell them to keep
focus
quiet.
on the resolution.
Tell them to keep quiet.
And try to wrap up your presentation.
I can wrap up. Every time I wrap up and I hear them, I'm going to tell the people of Barbados who they are.
But you're allowing them to get under your skin.
No, they're not under my skin. They're under the skin of the people of Barbados.
Remain focused.
I remain in focus.
Right.
And the question always remaining in their conscience will be, why do you want $28,000 from the church? And I accuse the honorable member for St. George South. They tell me that the rules can't talk about departures. Well, when he comes back from wherever he's gone, hopefully he will read the other details on this document. He skimmed over it, and it is not for me to read it. I'm going to let him read it.
Focus on the
I
chair,
am-
sir.
Yes, I am focusing on this.
Right.
There are other details in this document. Let us be calm. There are other details in this document. There are other details in this document. Let not your heart be troubled, member for St. Thomas, nor be afraid.
Order, please. Order, please.
Yes, settle them, settle them, settle them.
All right. Order, please.
Speak to her, sir.
Continue, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. But she's still piping up.
Just focus on the chair,
Oh,
sir.
yes, I'll focus on you, sir. And so, Your Honor, again, and for the last time, I will attempt to make the final point that there are several other aspects to this resolution which the Honourable Member for St. George South did not read. I do not think it is my responsibility to read it. I will ask him to have the courage to come back here and to read it, at risk that he will anger the people of this country, that he will visit, when he reads it, he will visit the people of this country with even greater anger. They're not happy with him. And so, Your Honor, we oppose the resolutions. We can never support any transaction that promises to make extinct a church. How soon they want the money, though? They say they want it in installments, so that every week, when that collection plate is passed around, it will be passed around with a burden by the person who carries it. He will feel a greater burden that those who dropped in pennies may now have to drop in dimes. And that is the pressure being placed on a church in this country. Pennies and dimes, yes. That is the burden that they will feel. And I'm not trying to make them angry. I'm just trying to make them aware. And I'm trying to make them aware, sir, that this government has not done them any favor. This government has not done that church any favor. So when you heard the speech this morning, very pretty speech, gently delivered, that hidden within those dulcet tones and the gentleness of language was the sword of Damocles, which promises to decapitate the very organization that they want people to believe they are helping. What next? Taxation? What next, sir? What next for the people of this country? What next against the Christians of this country who have done this government nothing? What next, Your Honor? I am obliged to you, sir.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. John.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I am pleased to support this resolution. And I want to say from the onset that I have never heard such level of hypocrisy as I got here this afternoon. This particular project, Mr. Deputy Speaker, started in 2018 while I was at the Ministry of Housing with the former member for the constituency of St. Andrew. And the reality is that the good people of St. John, particularly the good people of Welch, do not need any rats parachuting in St. John to represent them, any kind of rodent. And to hear the member talking about conscience and all of that, there was a senior member of Victory Wesleyan Holiness Church that had cash in hand, ready to purchase this land for the construction of the church. So when I'm hearing about this $28,000 coming from the church and the church can't afford it, it is far, far, far from the truth. And I want to extend the invitation that came from the Honourable Member for St. George South to the Leader of the Opposition to join the Honourable Leader, myself, and the good people of Sergeant Street, including Adiko, because you spoke about family, and this is a family church. So I want you to be there with Mr. Deputy Speaker. I want the Honourable Member to be there because this is a story that will be told throughout St. John. But I'm pleased that Victory will be finally getting the opportunity to construct their church because, like I said, this started in 2018. And then they indicated they were even prepared to construct a small community center on the same premises to facilitate the youngsters who reside in Bathland and Welch. But I'm happy now that the former church, the small church, will be converted into a community center to benefit those people at Welch. So when I hear Mr. Deputy Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition, ranting and raving about this church in Bathland, he really is out to sea in relation to that. And if it is a case where, like I said, you have these aspirations of coming to St. John, recently there was a debate in here, and I'm suggesting that we create another constituency in Culpeper Island. Is looking really good for you. Mr. Deputy Speaker, the truth is that there's a need for us to have, and I know other members on this side are asking about community centers, and this one is needed in Welch. I was there last week, and I spoke to some youngsters in the area who identified a couple of training programs that they want to come within the village. And my ministry will facilitate those training programs that are coming to Victory as it is now. Mr. Speaker, this church, as mentioned by the Honourable Member for St. George South, is one that people from all in the area, Sergeant Street, Bathland, the same Welch, Coach Hill, will gravitate to. And I really, really support this because it is overdue. 2018, 6-7 years later, we're now seeing it cross the finish line. And this community center, like the other community centers on island, Mr. Speaker, we are doing a number of things through my ministry to empower communities and the young people and elderly people within the communities. In recent times, we would have started something at the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment called the Center Management Committees, Mr. Deputy Speaker. What am I speaking about? These center management committees will provide an opportunity for those community centers to open past 4:30 when regular staff is exiting to go home. And we are asking for 6 individuals from within the locale of the community center to come on board and to manage the community centers up to 11, 12 o'clock at night. That will provide an opportunity for those individuals who are involved in culture, who are involved in any kind of wholesome activity to carry on these particular events within that location. To date, Mr. Speaker, we have 12 center management committees in place. And we expect to build out all of those community centers with the center management committees. It is important to note, Mr. Speaker, that in recent time as well, my ministry would have embarked on a program called the Community Empowerment Program. And we're using the community centers to make sure that we can reach as many young people on island as possible. This community engagement program, we are partnering with the National Insurance Scheme, we are partnering with the Barbados Revenue Authority, the Barbados Workers Union, and Sagicor to provide our young people across the island with an opportunity for those who don't have a TAMIS number, for those who want to start a bank account. All of this information is contained in these particular interventions that we're doing across the island. Project Dawn is one of those initiatives from my ministry that is looking to empower our youngsters on the blocks across Barbados. We are currently in the SJPI, BCC, Palmarine, and the Vocational Training Board. But it is coming to a stage, Mr. Speaker, where we're expanding, and these same community centers will provide satellite locations for us to further expand the training of our young people across this country. So when I hear the Honourable leader of the opposition speaking about Welch, he has absolutely no information about Welch. And I dare the Honourable member to walk Sergeant Street from today, tomorrow, whenever, in relation to what you did to that youngster. And we're talking family life, sir, that revolves around our community centers, and I want you to do that. Both of you are invited to the church at Wealth when Adico is back on island. Both of you. Because I am saying to you that you can't start this way in the constituency of St. John. This belief that the Democratic Labour Party can type something to anything and send it into St. John is no longer happening. It's no longer happening. So you can come in here and talk about the bank and all this stuff. What you need to do is to come and represent Christchurch South. I have not heard you put forward a single case for Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Yes, sir.
A single case for that particular constituency that the man represented for 2 terms. Yes, the Honourable member, sorry. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I fully support this resolution because it is a victory for the church. It is a victory for the people of Bath, who not so long ago, as the Honourable member would have mentioned, received their conveyances for land in that area. St. John is rising, and no rat can stop St. John from rising. I am obliged.
Thank you, sir. Honourable member for St. George North.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Speaker. And I rise to make a very brief intervention as I support the resolution before us. As one who grew up in the Wesleyan Holiness Church and who has seen the expansion of the church, of the congregations in the Wesleyan Holiness Church, and who has seen how the church over time has gone from the small chattel-type wooden structures, and how a lot of the Wesleyan Holiness churches across the District of Barbados have been able to expand their congregations, and so the buildings to meet the expanded congregation is one that I have seen and I have appreciated over time. Mr. Deputy Speaker, a church should never find itself in a position where it is looking to anyone for handouts. Indeed, the Bible urges support for the less fortunate, and so there's always appreciation for those who look out for the needs of others that they consider to be less fortunate. But the Bible also emphasizes responsibility and hard work. It also encourages faith. And indeed, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for those of us who have grown up in the church, and particularly in small churches, we appreciate the value of those lessons of responsibility and hard work. As one who spent most of her time in the Wesleyan Church, but not only in the Wesleyan Church, in 2 small Wesleyan Holiness churches, one in St. John and one in St. George. And as one who can appreciate the expansion and the responsibility and the commitment to hard work and the commitment to sacrificing, I think I can speak a bit on it. As a member of one of those churches, the one in St. George, I remember that there was the need seen to purchase a church bus at one time. And I don't know how many people in here who grew up in the Pentecostal church know about something called, know about the different fundraising events that you do and something called rallies. We would call them rallies. Where the church, a small church, a membership of 40 people or 50 people will be divided up into groups. You go and do your fundraising and you come in and do a church rally around something. On that occasion, it was a church bus. Mr. Deputy Speaker, a small church in rural St. George undertook a rally after weeks and weeks and weeks of fundraising and so on. And we were able to raise the money to buy a church bus and then owe a bank a cent for it. That same small church needed to repair its roof, an asbestos roof, and needed to replace it. And that small church, through rallies and other interventions, raised enough money to purchase the materials to repair their own church roof. The first church, the one that I was baptized in, or what we would call christening, that church was a small chapel church on the front road in an area called Edgecliff in St. John. And that church at capacity was less than 100 people it would hold. If you go to the same spot where the church is located on, you will see a lovely 2-story building that did not come from handouts, but came from a church that was committed to working hard, dedicated to working hard, and understood what responsibility and self-help is. Of course, if there was a setting where an offer was made to a church, I don't think that there's any church or any institution, if it's being offered something that is good that will help, would say no to it. But at the same time, a church is never in a position where it is walking around looking for handouts, because the church understands, as we have been taught, that it is our responsibility to help others. And so I think that it is with a certain measure of scorn that anyone would spend so long trying to look down on a church. And I heard the word little mentioned no fewer than 4 times. Look down on a little church in a little community of Welsh Village, in a little parish of St. John, to formulate a kind of opinion that the church must get a handout, or the church looking for freeness, because anyone listening carefully may even misinterpret, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that somebody in that church or somebody on the Wesleyan Holiness District is pushing for handouts, is pushing for freeness. Now, what is before us is that the church has been able to acquire 26,228.42 square feet at a value of $28,000, which, if we do the math, puts it at just above $1 per square foot. And Mr. Speaker, I know that the Honourable Member for St. John, when he spoke, raised the fact that there was a member of the church who was ready and willing to make the payment for the church and maybe make the payment for even more. So I don't think, Mr. Speaker, I think that we run actually a very dangerous risk of underestimating people and looking down on people. And the Honourable Member for St. John touched on it when he said that there is a perception that anything thrown at people that we consider little and small-minded and from small places and therefore being of no significance, there is a miscalculation on anybody's part who thinks that smallness means small-mindedness or inability or unwillingness or incapacity to deal with one's own affairs. And as some person who not only grew up in the Wesleyan Holiness Church, but grew up in the parish of St. John, I take particular offense to it. Because the people of St. John have shown that no longer will they be willing to settle just for any and everything packaged in something that it wants new. And the time for that demonstration, Mr. Speaker, will come again. And I just want to urge anyone who is listening out there that the Wesleyan Holiness Church has never been in the practice of begging. It has never been in the practice of looking for handouts. And it has always been in developing not only the spiritual capacity of the people within its congregations, but catering to their social needs, and expanded facilities are put to very good use, Mr. Deputy Speaker, at all times to ensure that it delivers in those respects to people who are dependent on the church as a cornerstone of this society to deliver. And so, Mr. Speaker, I venture off from there to say to the Honourable Member for St. George South, the Honourable Minister of Housing, that another small community in a very small rural parish, the parish of St. George, and particularly in the area of St. George North, would also look forward to the time where it has the opportunity to make good use of the building funds that have been raised to direct it towards the purchase of land so that it too can expand its facility. And I speak of the church, the Wesleyan Holiness Church too, at Flat Rock in the lovely parish of St. George. We too look forward to that opportunity where we can get the opportunity to put funds raised to the use that it was intended to continue to contribute to spreading the gospel and catering to the needs of people in our community. So I speak, I believe, not only for the church at Victory, Wesleyan Holiness in St. John, but also for the church at Flat Rock Wesleyan Holiness, Woburn Wesleyan Holiness, which looks forward in short time to being in a similar position of celebration and thanksgiving like the church at Victory. And I speak for the Wesleyan Holiness Church. I believe a church I grew up in, I don't need to speak to the board of management of the church, but I believe that the general superintendent of the church, the general superintendent who's responsible not only for Barbados, but the Caribbean district, will be joining with me in celebration that a church can purchase a piece of land for just over $1 per square foot to spread and expand its calling and its contribution to the development of souls within this country. And before I sit, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I also make mention of the fact that in the same way the Wesleyan Church looks forward to contributing to the social upliftment and the overall well-being of souls within its community and within our society, that so too the church generally has a responsibility to follow this good example in expanding and the use of its resources to help and uplift people. And in so making that point, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I also look forward to the time where the church in the parish of St. George, as it relates to the glebe lands, that the church could make good haste and good use of every effort that it has within its power. That in the same way government looks and works hard to deliver title to people who are less fortunate, that the church will continue and accelerate actually its efforts in connection with delivering to the people of St. George who have been renting glebe lands for years and decades and generations of families, that they too can get title. We started the process through the Ministry of Housing to ensure that these lands have been transferred. I know that over 140 titles have been transferred. And we also look forward to the day where reciprocity, not only the church being willing to purchase, not only government being able to assist the church in feeding the flock, but also the church fulfilling totally its obligation to accelerate its efforts to give towards the cause of ensuring that people can enjoy good, affordable housing that they can pass on from one generation to the next. So, Mr. Speaker, with that contribution, I'm wholly supporting the resolution, and I look forward to many more churches and institutions who are contributing in a very positive way to the society, being able to take advantage of any opportunity that it can have to have lands available to it that it could put to very good use to further the development of the people within this country. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. Honourable Member for St. Peter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and I am pleased to be able to address you while contributing a little bit to this debate on this particular resolution. When the resolution was discussed in the parliamentary group, when it was put on the order paper, a resolution that speaks to transferring land to a religious organization, for me it was a sobering thought. You know, it was a situation that caused me to recognize that the development of a country is a shared responsibility. It is not one that a government can do on its own, a political party can do on its own. There has to be that partnership between the various organs in a society, but including, and very importantly, the church. It was sometimes you hear little squeaks. Sometimes, Mr. Deputy Speaker, you hear little squeaks.
Or loud ones sometimes.
Little squeaks. As though a country can develop without a credit union, without a church, without a bank, without these entities working together. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I started by saying that in considering the resolution, I recognize that the resolution itself took into consideration the joint nature of national development. What was a little troubling, maybe a lot troubling, and I say this both as a Christian, but also as a minister responsible for religious affairs. Ordinarily, we would not use either faith or the institutions of faith as political playthings. What we heard today from the Honourable Member from Christchurch South, the Honourable Member of Christchurch South, sorry, not from Christchurch South, but of Christchurch South, and I have, Mr. Deputy Speaker, nothing to say about St. John, because in the last by-election, I was, well, in the press briefing or conference before that, I was taken to task for speaking the truth. And I don't want to be taken to task again for speaking that truth. So I'm not saying anything about moving from Christchurch South to St. John. I'm not saying anything about, I'm not using any adjective. I'm not quoting anything. But when the Honourable Member for Christchurch South can drag an institution of faith into a political exercise in attempting to first discredit the request of the organization, the faith organization, also attempting to put down the way that faith organizations operate. It said to me there is some element of desperation involved, but there's also, and that desperation might be on the political side, but there's also, it brought home to me that religious certification is not equal to religious understanding or understanding of religious institutions. So I'll explain why I say what I just said. When organizations in the faith community move to construct, to purchase, those that are part of larger organizations, so there are congregations of larger organizations. The first principle that is used by these organizations is that we do things collectively. The second, also important consideration is that religious organizations are based on faith. And I talk about religious faith. Faith in the God that the members serve. There is always the recognition that God has provided for us to be able to acquire that which we need to acquire. Now, a religious organization will not expect that somebody will jut out their eyes, but they expect to be able to be treated reasonably. And in this case, if the Honourable Member for Christchurch South had spoken to the leader of the congregation in the area where they tell me that he is seen, you know, the people in Christchurch South are saying they're wondering why he is in St. John so much. But if in the time when he is there, he had spoken to the leader of the congregation, he would have found out, and it only took a question really, because the gentleman is always willing to speak. I think like most pastors are, willing to speak and to share of their faith and of their beliefs and to share their thoughts generally. That's how they're brought up, that's how they're trained, that is their calling. He would have found out that the members of this congregation are happy with the decision of the government and are anxious for this transaction to be finalized so that they can take possession. Now, these organizations, Mr. Deputy Speaker, faith organizations, are ready to work with all other agencies in a state, in a country, to develop the country. One of the issues that faith organizations have is the matter of having facilities that they can use for all of the programs that those organizations want to execute. The partnership between the church or faith organizations, and I shouldn't specify just the church, I'm speaking to faith organizations generally. The partnership between religious organizations, organizations based on faith, and a country is one that recognizes, and there was much mention about tithing today. So maybe we should share that the way this country operates is that when a person, a member of a faith community, contributes to that faith community, the government already in law has said, that which you have contributed, that which you have contributed, we will not tax it. We will not tax it. So there is that recognition that this is a partnership. And so the members of faith communities work with government, and I know this from an example pretty close to me in St. Peter, and the Honourable Member for St. Andrew would be familiar with this. Very early in our tenure as government, Barbados Civil Party in the government did something similar in Indian ground. Now, at that time, the Honourable Member who said today that he is always in Parliament, he would remember that that transfer took place. There was a purchase price. That price was paid. And the reason why I say that church organizations work together is because the congregation that I attend is also in St. Peter. And all of the organizations around were there, ready to assist. We knew what was happening, ready to assist, so that when the purchase transaction was to take place, everybody would pitch in. That is how the organizations work. And if it is just for educational purposes, I'm prepared to do it, to share with the Honourable Member for Christchurch South, that is how church organizations operate. They understand that facilities are needed in order to execute the program of the church. Those programs are programs that are geared to address the spiritual component of persons, but not just the spiritual, also the physical and the psychological and the financial and the social, and all of these different and varied components of a person that make up the total person. It addresses the whole person. These programs are holistic, and that is the reason why these organizations would want to have the facilities to be able to execute the programs. And so when a government, including this government, works to transfer land at very small amounts to organizations of faith, it is understanding that these organizations are contributing to national development, whether it is in Welsh, whether it is in Indian ground, wherever it is in this country. These organizations want to contribute. And so they are contributing. They want to have these facilities. They have put aside funds. There are many, many persons, members of these congregations, who have put aside funds, and the funds are just sitting, waiting for these transactions to pass through the House of Assembly so that they can have their facility to be able to work with the people in the location where they are and to be able to contribute to the growth and development of individuals, of communities, of societies, and ultimately of the nation. I want to say something before I say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, about the matter of the call for the church to be more active in society. Now, there are those who would want to mislead.
Control yourself, sir.
Sorry, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
I was asking him to control himself.
Oh, I didn't even realize he was saying something. But I heard the Honourable Member for Christchurch South say that you are good, Mr. Deputy Speaker, but I didn't realize you were that good. I did not realize he was actually saying something. Okay, but thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for alerting me of that. Not necessarily I wanted to know, but I really did not recognize. There was nothing of substance coming from that area of the Honourable Chamber, so I didn't recognize that there was something happening. But there was this matter of speaking about criticizing the church. Now, I feel that I can speak to this matter. And I will say that calling on a church, calling on a religious institution to be more active in the community is not a criticism of a church. But I will also say, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that it is often not known the extent to which some religious organizations are working, and so in their communities. And so I appreciate, I probably would not call on the church to do more, but I appreciate the call for the church to do more. And what I would want to say to you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, is that I would call on the church, and I know that churches do not like going in this direction. There is a reluctance by churches to put everything that they're doing in the public domain. And I agree with churches in taking that position. I agree with them in taking that position. Churches will not operate like some others may, maybe commercial entities that advertise, that sponsor, and that do so to get the publicity. But I will want to challenge religious institutions, churches, and other religious institutions to ensure that their works are recognized. Not that they do anything for recognition, but I think it is important that communities and that the country generally becomes aware of the work that is being done by faith-based organizations. I think it is important for a number of reasons, but I will just say it is important. I'll speak to one reason. It is important that communities, that the nation generally recognizes that faith-based organizations, all like now, are contributing significantly to the development of individuals in our societies, to the development of families in our societies, to the development of villages and communities in our societies. That is happening all like now, even with limited physical resources, limited infrastructural resources. These organizations, these churches, these congregations are doing significant work. It is important while that work is taking place that the communities that may not be recognizing it be made aware of it. And so I know, as a person of faith, speaking through you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, to people of faith, I know that you will not want, and I will say that we will not want to appear to be making these things just for PR purposes. But let us make sure that our country is aware of the work that we are doing. Okay. Let our communities be aware of the work that we are doing in our communities. Now, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the relationship between the church and religious organizations, but I would probably want to say third sector organizations more generally, is one that this government has been working hard to develop. That relationship is born out of a recognition that it is not possible for a government, any government, to do all that is necessary with respect to developing a nation. It is not possible. There are some places, some spaces where there is a need for the intervention of grassroots organizations. So that when I say to you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that, and I have this conversation with public officers in my ministry from time to time. I sometimes say that you cannot, there are some situations where you cannot, it is difficult, let me phrase it this way. It is difficult to replicate the passion of, for example, a person who has a disability and who is championing the cause for people with disabilities. It is difficult, if not impossible, to replicate that passion through a person who either does not or does not believe that he or she has a disability. You can have a passion, you can have a desire, you can have a strong will to. But those who are touched are those who really feel it. And so it is necessary for third sector organizations generally, and we consider that faith-based organizations are members of that third sector community. We applaud their work. We encourage their work. We ask them to continue the sterling service that they've been given to this country. We recognize the passion that they bring to their work, to the exercise of their responsibilities. We recognize that it is not possible really to replicate it, and we encourage them to do all that they set out to do. We promise as a government that we will hold their hands, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that we will work with them in ensuring that they are able to deliver on the mandates that they have, that they're able to deliver on the ideas that they have that they've developed. Many of them have developed the ideas in association with others. We commit, just as this resolution seeks to do, we commit to working with all of our third sector organizations. We commit to working with our faith-based organizations so that together, as a country, as partners in national development, we can see the realization of their dreams. We can see the development of this nation. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm obliged to you, and I support this resolution before this honorable chamber.
Thank you. Honorable member for St. George South.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. You know, the honorable member for Christchurch South is laughing. He knows why he's laughing. And Mr. Speaker, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the honorable member, first let me thank those members who spoke in this debate with respect to the sale of land to the Wesleyan Church and the use of the current Wesleyan facility that will be transformed into a resource center, or I should say a community center. But, you know, the honorable member spent the afternoon, the past hour in his speech, repeating the bank, the bank, the bank. And this country, I piloted that debate with respect to the licensing of the land to the African Export-Import Bank. And we should not be ashamed of this. $7 million to be placed in an urban transformation fund. $7 million to address housing in the urban corridor in the environs of the city of Bridgetown. And a further $400 million in deals that will come to Barbados in terms of investment. And I ain't finished there, $2.5 billion that will come to the region. So I don't know where the honorable member today began this discourse. He's not comparing apples with apples. And then he is seeking to bring the Wesleyan Church as a little political football. That's what he did today. But this is not George Street. That's where the political football is. Don't use my church as no political ploy or no political football. Don't do that. And you should know better. You came up in the Wesleyan Church. And to suggest that you had conversations with members of the Wesleyan Church is indeed misleading. Is indeed misleading. The pastor of the Wesleyan Church approached the Ministry of Housing to purchase this land. And I said it from 1977, the diocesan trustees, they were paying rent to the government for this land. So since when have we done something wrong or something bad to the church? Since when? From 1977, we passed through several governments. The Bath plantation that this government bought. And you want to talk about the bank? You're not comparing apples with apples. At a value of $1 per square foot, close to $1 that we are selling land to the church, and the church is happy. You are seeking to bring the church, to use the church as a political football to score cheap political points. It was not accepted. If I show you the comments coming from the church today, you indeed would keep out of St. John. You would keep out of St. John. But Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, it is late. And I again thank on behalf of the church. And it so happened that the pastor of the Ellington Wesleyan Holiness Church is also the pastor of the Victory Wesleyan Holiness Church. That should tell you something. How do you know that? He's my pastor. He's my pastor. I will take you to Victory, but I don't think you can go to Welch, sir. The people don't want to see you in Welch. I may get stoned. G65, 67 may be in trouble driving through Welch behind you or in front of you. But, Mr. Deputy Speaker, I want to thank the members who spoke, member for St. James, for St. Peter, the member for St. George North, and I heard you, member, and certainly from tomorrow, you know charity begins at home. We will be looking to see how best we can take this land and utilize to the Wesleyan Holiness Church in St. James North. And in St. James North. So, St. James North, St. George North, sorry. St. George North, thank you, member. My mind is on St. James North for another reason, all right? Because there are some other matters relating to land that we are treating with right now in St. James North. And you, certainly, the member for Christchurch South, you spent at least 3 weeks in St. James North and you made no impact. And we are making sure when you go back to St. James North, it will be lesser of an impact. So that is why St. James North is on my mind. But the member for St. George North, you rest assured that we will be addressing this matter on behalf of that lovely Woburn Church in Flat Rock. So, Mr. Deputy Speaker, with those few words, I beg that this resolution to vest the sale of 2,467 square meters and 26,562.10 square feet of land to the Wesleyan Holiness Church and the lease of 319 square meters of land, including, do one at a time? Sorry. I beg that the resolution for the sale of 26,562.1 square meters of land to the Wesleyan Church, Victory Wesleyan Holiness Church, do now pass.
The question is that this resolution vesting $2,467.7 square meters of land do no pass. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Order number 9, sir. In the name of the Honourable Minister of Housing, Lands and Maintenance, to move the passing of a resolution to approve in accordance with Section 5 of the Crown Lands Vesting and Disposal Act, Chapter 225, the lease to the Pilgrim Holiness Church, the Wesleyan Holiness Church, of a parcel of land, the property of the state, situate at Bath in the parish of St. John in this island, and more particularly described in the first schedule on the terms and conditions set out in the second schedule for the purpose to operate and undertake its church services.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg that the resolution to lease 311.9 square meters of land situated at Wealth Village, Bath St. John to the Victory Wesleyan Holiness Church do now pass.
Question is that 311.9 square meters of land situated at Welch's Village, Bath St. John do no pass. All those members in favor, please say aye. All against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, recommittal of government notices.
Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I beg to give notice of the Criminal Proceedings Witness Anonymity Bill 2025, as well as the Police Amendment Bill 2025, also the Interception of Communications Bill 2025, and the Family Leave Bill 2025.
Recommittal of first readings of bills.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, I beg to move the first reading of the Criminal Proceedings Witness Anonymity Bill 2025, the Police Amendment Bill 2025, the Interception of Communications Bill 2025, and the Family Leave Bill 2025.
The question is, those mentioned bills be read the first time. All those members in favor, please say aye. All those against, please say no. I think the ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I beg to move, therefore, the adjournment of the House until Tuesday, the 12th of August at 10 a.m.
The question is, beg someone second? All right. The question is that this House do not stand adjourned until the 12th of August at 10 a.m. All those honorable members in favor, please say aye. All against, please say no. I think the ayes have it. This House now stands adjourned until the 12th of August, 2025.